We're here at the Church of the Redemption. My name is Randi Donselar, and I'm here with Ed Munro, who started the International Seafarers Center 20 years ago, and I was the first treasurer there. And we just wanted to ask Ed some questions today about the center 20 years later. Ed,
yes.
Can you believe it's been 20 years?
I certainly can.
I was pregnant with my son and was your first treasurer, and
Yeah.
What made you come to Church of the Redemption and want to start an International Seafarers Center here in Baltimore?
Well, first things first. I wanted to start the Seafarers Center because I had an experience of interacting with some seafarers. I knew nothing about their lifestyle, about the work, about the hardships that go into it. But I happened to be on a cruise in 1991, February of 1991. And that was just a few months before I was going to be ordained as a deacon. And I had many conversations with workers on the cruise ship. I guess they're seafarers, but they're also maids and waiters and did all kinds of jobs. And I learned about their work hours. I learned about the amount of time they spend away from home. Most of them were from the developing world, Philippines, India, Indonesia, places like that. I found out about their lifestyle, their work hours, and the hardships that they go through. And the amount of time especially that impacted on me was the amount of months that they spent away from their families.
Right.
And so, for some reason, that clicked, becoming a deacon, looking to establish some form of ministry, and Baltimore being a port, which I knew, no details, but I knew it was a port, and the lifestyle of these people, it seemed like a fit as far as ministry was concerned. And the reason I came to Redemption was I knew the rector here. I knew it was near the port, and I thought that it would be helpful for me to be in a parish that was near the port. So those, I think, are the answers to your first two questions.
Well, it was an eye-opener for me because, and I just learned something from you, that you, even at that level, I think you were probably in a mid-level of people that had hardships on the sea. That wasn't even the bottom of the barrel yet, people working on cruise ships.
Exactly.
It was definitely an eye-opener for me, and that's why I got involved. I just had always felt that seafaring was so glamorous from what I saw, and to know that there were people out there who were living lives that were well below glamorous is what struck me and why I became interested. So here we are 20 years later. Is the center where you wanted it to be?
Yes.
Did it
Yes.
develop the way you wanted it to?
Not as fast, but yes, it's developed the way I want it to be. You know, when I started the center, I traveled to different ports in the northeast and southeast part of the United States to see what people were doing, because I had no idea what a Seamen's Center was or looked like, or what a port chaplain exactly did. So I went to New York, Philadelphia, Norfolk, Wilmington, North Carolina, Morehead City, North Carolina, visiting the chaplains there, visiting the centers to try to determine what we could do with our resources in the most effective way. And advice from some of those people was that I shouldn't start anything unless I could go the whole 9 yards. In other words, I wasn't to raise people's hopes and then not be able to fulfill those hopes, or have the facilities that they were expecting. Advice from other people told me, do what you can do. If you can help one person, if you can help two persons, that's two more people being helped than before you started. And that is the advice I chose. Because the reality is, after I left after 12 years, and it's been 5 or 6 years since then, and I think we're still not at 100%. So my point is that if I had waited to be able to be perfect, I'd still be waiting.
Right.
So it is it's far exceeded what I ever expected it to be with the minimal resources that we had.
And was there, when you said if you've helped one or two people, was there one person in particular that, or a ship or an incident, where you stepped back and said, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I wanted to do this.
I could tell you a dozen dozen instances like that. Victor was a Romanian, second officer on a ship, and he got in an altercation with somebody at a bus stop that was trying to grab his wallet out of his hand, and the police came and locked Victor up. And I got a call from the agent that was handling the ship. John S. Connor, actually, was the agency. And he worked with him. And, you know, Bill Settle. Bill was the agent. He was a terrific man, terrific man. He called me up and he said, "Do you ever bail people out of jail?" And I said, "Well, I haven't up to now, but I'd be open to that possibility if it needed to happen. But I have to talk to this guy first. I mean, I'm not going to bail somebody out of jail that I don't even, have never had any contact with." So after several days of trying, I finally got admitted to central booking, which is not easy, you know, to get in there, and managed to spend some time talking to Victor through a grill, not even, you know, together like we are. And after being with him for about 30 minutes, I was convinced that there was no reason for him to be in jail. I heard his story, I heard his agony, actually, about, you know, being in there. And so I told Bill that I would bail him out. Now, Bill said, this is the kind of guy Bill is. Bill said, well, if you bail him out, he can stay with me until the trial comes up. And so I bailed Victor out of jail. He went to live with Bill in Annapolis.
Excuse me, how old was Victor?
Mid-20s, I would
and
say.
In a foreign country and by himself?
Yes. Well, he was the second officer on the ship. I'm sure he traveled all around the world. But once he got locked up, the ship left without any concern about Victor whatsoever.
No safety
Basically, the money, his pay, whatever other allowances he was allotted, went to Bill and said, "You take care of it. We're out of here." You know. So he was pretty much on his own. He went to live with Bill. We helped him. We took him. When I say we, Eileen Taylor, who worked at the center, and myself, we take him to see to get his possessions that had been confiscated when he was arrested. We took him to see the public defender several times in order to prepare, you know, for what needed to happen at the trial. And we tried to convince the public defender and the prosecutor both that this was a mistake. And finally, after several visits, we convinced the prosecutor to drop the charges. The prosecutor, when it went to court, the prosecutor was going to, whatever the legal term is, say that we're not going to prosecute him. And in fact, they permitted him to leave the country before the trial date came up.
And what is Victor doing now?
Victor, the last time I met Victor, it was at South Locust Point, and he was, I think, the chief mate on a ship, a much nicer ship than the one he'd been on. And I haven't been in contact with him or heard from him, but I think Bill told me a few years ago that he was a captain of the ship now.
A different life than if the Seafarers Center hadn't been there.
Exactly.
And you hadn't been
I mean, I don't know what would have happened if he had actually had to go to trial and the judge found him guilty, because he was charged with first-degree assault or something like that, which certainly would have meant jail time if he had been convicted. One thing I do want to mention before we finish, and I do thank the Church of the Redemption, because they were our first board of directors. You know, we needed, even though we were flying by the seat of our pants, even though we didn't have many resources, we did need kind of a body, a group, to oversee what we were doing in order to make it, you know, legit. And they filled that function. And of course, I thank you for being our first treasurer, because I knew nothing about. I learned a lot about handling money since it started.
Sure.
But before it started, I'd never been involved in anything like that before. And you were very helpful in
well, thank you, because, like I said, I thank you for opening my eyes to something that was right in my own backyard, and a need in my own backyard that I didn't even know was there. From a seafarer family, I want to say thank you for starting it, and thank you for opening the eyes of the Port of Baltimore to a need that was there.
Well, thank you for your help, and I'm
You're
Tickled
welcome.
pink that it's still going strong.
Thanks.